Now? Yay! We are live on YouTube. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Through a Therapist's Eyes.
Hey, y'all.
This is before we fire up, before we get into the show that you'll see on Spotify and whatnot. The topic tonight is going to be emotional freedom. You like the catchy title there, Victoria?
Yeah, want some?
Want some? So this is the way to connect with us before we do the show that you'll hear on Spotify and whatnot. You can interact with us. Live recording and comments are welcomed and enjoyed. How you guys doing today anyway?
How are we doing?
Yeah.
Or how's the listeners doing?
That's just my statement.
Or
to
both.
Say I'm done talking right now, so you
I'm doing well.
because I need to get my stuff set
I
up.
had a slow day today.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I had a doctor's appointment this morning, and so I blocked off 3 hours, like my 7, my 8, and my 9. And then I got mad at myself because technically I probably could have still had my 9 because the doctor's appointment lasted 2.5 seconds. But I know if I hadn't canceled or rescheduled my 9, my doctor's appointment would have
gone on forever.
would have gone on forever.
Yeah.
And so then I didn't have anybody until 11 today.
That's the law of irony.
It is. Yeah. I just hate how that stuff happens. But
One of the things that they said in the military was first thing we learned. They said, "Hurry up and wait."
mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, Adam's learned how to enter the building.
Oh, really?
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's always wants to do it right. You know, thumb to the seam.
Uh-huh.
You know, he's like this or something like, no, bring your hand down. It's like,
Yeah.
Future sailor.
So you're not a British guy.
You know, is that what they do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, future sailor Gazdick respectfully requesting permission to come aboard to be able to enter into the.
Oh, yeah, because he's doing the Navy.
Heck yeah, boy. He's riding it.
Oh, he's got to learn
everything.
how to go
Permission.
around a boat and not get lost.
Permission to ship.
A ship. Sorry.
It's a ship,
I'm sorry.
so that's okay.
Ship. So what?
I
is
mean,
the,
a submarine's a boat.
Let me ask you this, Chappie. What's the ruling on? How does it work? Like, I think civilians should not be saluting at all or anything along those lines, right? Like that.
I had problems with even the presidents doing it.
Even the presidents saluting and doing it, right?
Yeah.
Even if they were
But I'm just
retired?
I'm old school. No, you've got to wear a uniform to salute.
okay.
That's the whole point, is that you have to be in the service to do that. Now, if Ronald Reagan, who was actually in the Army
Right.
during the Second World War, and he was wearing his uniform, and he had a right to wear it because he was an officer, and you would be able. I have a right to wear my uniform.
Right.
So
Now,
do you not
that
salute
I
if
could-
you're not in your uniform?
You're not really supposed to.
That's insane. Okay, because
Well, that's interesting because he's not uniformed yet. He's future.
Yeah,
sailor,
he's just
and they're learning. And stuff.
They're learning. He's
But is
learning
that a thing? It's supposed to be dressed.
He's supposed to be, generally
That's so-
speaking.
okay. So every Sunday at the Panthers games, when they do the national anthem, the announcer will say something about active and retired members may render their salutes.
Yeah. Well,
And that's interesting because nobody, I mean, they do have a select few people that are in uniform there. And they obviously salute. But I mean, a bunch of people you'll look around and a bunch of people will be
Are saluting.
and they're not in uniform.
Noticed that.
I never knew that.
I do.
So now I wonder, am I going to judge them now when I see them saluting?
Well, there's tradition and there's
Well,
also
yeah.
functionality.
I mean, they may have changed it in the 30 years I've been out of the
wonder.
service.
But I ask that because I'm teaching him the reverence and the honor
importance
and
of
the
it.
importance of that. Like he was messing around with it and stuff, and like I
you have to ask
purposely will
permission to
not
come
be-
aboard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So
all
you're
of
the
that.
captain of
You're
so they'll go
coming
by
to
your
superiors.
rules. The Gastic rule. You could say this is the SS Gastic.
No,
And-
no, it's the 1517th Street Gang. That's what it is.
Okay. Oh.
The kids already created that one. All right, we're probably ready
Anyways.
to get going. Yeah, let's get rolling.
You got everything ready to go?
Second. Oops.
Oh my goodness.
What?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you put a Do you actually put coffee in your coffee, or is it just all filler? It's all creamer and flavor.
No,
Rum.
it's coffee.
Rum.
He doesn't drink coffee like me.
Rum. All right, let's go.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes on Victoria. What's the date?
The 14th of September.
September the 14th. I was testing you, actually. I was like looking at the calendar up there. That's my cheat sheet.
Oh.
Yes. You are Victoria with us. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And Mr. John Pope is there?
Outstanding, I am.
All right.
Oh, I sound like Yoda.
Gosh.
I love that. Yeah, Grogu is with us in the room. So I am Chris Gazdick, the host of Through a Therapist's Eyes. With these bright minds, we talk about everything mental health and substance abuse. This is where you get insights from a panel of therapists in personal time in your home, in your car. But it is what?
Not to render therapeutic services.
Of
Any kind.
Victoria loves to get me on saying that.
Well, yeah.
So we're going to be talking about emotional freedom tonight, which is a cool concept. I'm kind of looking forward to our conversations. Think about these questions. What is emotional freedom? Do you know the serenity prayer and how to really apply it, which I think is a big part of emotional freedom? And then letting go. Man, I think that's a big part of the idea of having emotional freedom. So we are able to say now with great pride, as of last week, we have our primary sponsor, First Horizon Bank. Neil, I really think there should be an S on that thing, man.
I was going to say, you said it right.
You know what I'm saying? I really feel like there should
I'm
be
not
an S.
agreeing
Should
with
be
you.
First
I'm just-
Horizons. Is that
Yeah.
what you-
I mean, it's
last week he
Yeah.
kept saying First Horizons, and Evan, our guest, had to keep saying that's First Horizon.
no. Neil was saying that.
And
He
Neil
was
was
very humble. He was like, whatever. But I was thinking about that driving to the work today. You know, talking about First
No,
Horizons.
there's
and the
one
bank.
horizon.
No, there's like 365. It's 365 degrees, man. How can there only be one horizon? Right? You got one in the east, you got one in the west, you got one
Okay,
in the
we look
south.
at one sky.
Yeah, but there's like it's all around.
There's a
Circle.
great movie and actually novel. It's called Lost Horizons.
Plural, right? Are you going to look at
Plural.
the eastern horizon or the western horizon? That's my question.
Okay,
Right?
well, why don't you call the person that
Our sponsor
runs-
needs to change their name. That's what I'm saying. No,
Don't
they
think
are a
that's
great
gonna
bank.
happen.
They're a neighborhood bank that's a small feel with a big national bank level ready to serve you. So we're happy to have them aboard with us. The marriage book is still being edited. We're banging through that sucker. Really enjoying that at this point. Contact at throughtherapisteyes.com is a great way to contact us. Listen, this is the human emotional experience which we do endeavor to figure out together. So let's launch. Also, I should say too, our music note, Reed Ferguson with the entry is cool. You should check him out for local shows. If you're local, he would love to get out to your show. ReedFerguson.com, although he's got a T in the middle of his name. REIDT Ferguson.com. So look, do you guys think about emotional freedom per se, like in therapy work?
I don't know that I've ever actually used the terminology,
Right?
but I've probably danced around the idea of it
Right. That's
for sure.
Well, and that's something I'm not really familiar with the term either, but I also like a lot of the things that evidently I was reading this little cheat sheet here.
yeah,
and,
my prep sheet for you.
your prep sheet.
That you get all
and,
kinds of
I
early,
like that.
early
Yeah.
delivery
Yeah.
for you.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's a really cool concept. I mean, I don't hear it in our vernacular culturally a whole lot either, but I feel as though it's one of the things that people are kind of striving for and really frankly needing a lot, and which ultimately is the result of good therapy. You know? So I don't think we talk about it a lot. But ultimately, like you said, Victoria, we are really striving in and through to get to that point. And man, how liberating some of the things are that people are dealing with in therapy. You know, those termination sessions, or, you know, when someone's, you know, been in therapy with us for a while. I mean, what is that like to hear them talk about but not say the words emotional freedom?
I like it when the clients have improved over a period of time and that they've been able to deconflict, basically, in their lives, and be able to have some resolution. Or
Deconflict is a cool word.
yeah,
Is that a word?
I made
use
it up.
You did? You nailed it?
No. But no, I think it's wonderful that they improve.
Yeah.
I mean, that's victory.
It's
Well,
super humbling
yeah.
when you see people in a very different state than when they change.
Exactly.
Right.
Or when my favorite is even when it's not a termination session, but just when they talk about a situation and I go, 6 months ago, you would not have reacted this way.
I do that same.
Or 6 months ago,
I
you
point
would
that
not
out.
have been a cool cucumber about this. You would have been freaking the F out or something. Like, and I'm like, you give yourself a pat on the back for that.
I do that
'Cause-
too because
So that's
that demonstrate-
emotional. Yeah.
That's emotional freedom. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, that's. I think it's almost like, I'm going to use a weird example, but I think it came. John, you kind of said this. You know, what is pornography? We were talking about that on a show at one point. It's kind of like you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
What is emotional freedom? You might struggle. You said, I think you both said you're not as familiar with the term, but you know it. You know it when you see it.
Yeah.
You know, it was a majorly humbling experience for me a couple of years ago, and we've all had these experiences, and I've had them since, I think. But you know, I was just hanging out by myself, right? Well, with a group of friends, and I was by myself at the place. It was an arcade, so we were out at night on the town. You know, Friday or Saturday night. It's like this arcade place. And I'm just walking around the room, and somebody looks over at me. He taps me on the shoulder. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm so-and-so. And he was a probably 22-year-old young man or whatnot. He's like, hey, I worked with you like few years ago. I just wanted to tell you, man, you really helped me. You really, really helped me. I was like, wow, right? You just see on YouTube John's face.
Ego boosting. I'm
It-
like,
Well, it's just it's humbling.
And
to
humbling,
me. It's
yeah.
humbling to be like, you know, bam, like, dude, that made an impact indelible on his life. And it's freedom. It's emotional freedom.
it fights my imposter syndrome.
Indeed.
I was just thinking that I had a student that had some issues, and he was studying to be a counselor. I mean, it was
Right.
and he had some issues with hygiene and
We all got issues.
yeah, we all do. And that didn't necessarily cause him not to be qualified as a counselor, but
Right.
he was having issues
Maybe
with
depression and hygiene.
yeah,
and
with depression. Yeah. And I didn't fix him because that wasn't my role
not
or
our
anything like as a therapist or as an academician
Right.
or as a professor. But to believe in him, to encourage him, to have him go to therapy, and I get this letter from
wow.
him
Yeah.
after about 6 years.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
A letter
Yeah.
thanking you and
Thanking me, yeah.
that's cool.
Thanking the school,
Yes.
thanking the other professors. Yeah.
Anybody out there that works with people, it can be very stressful and it's very difficult. I didn't plan this in our content, but it's cool to share your all's experiences. If you work with people, nursing, first responding, teaching, certainly in the human services field, keep a feel-good file is what I call it. I got a file in there from a lady that all the way back when I began in the crisis work.
We've talked about this before.
I always highlight that one because that's of all the things I've gotten. It was ironic that the company never gave it to me. I had to find it in my employee file. I'm like, what is this? Oh, yes, that's here. I'm like, okay, well, that'd been nice to know, but powerful.
You're not the only one. I had a professor in grad school who said the same thing to keep. I can't remember if she called it a feel-good file, but
I'm sure
it was.
I'm sure they had a better name.
Yeah, but it was basically the same thing. Have a file that you can reach into and that contains things that help you feel good about yourself when you're feeling kind of low.
So just any largest success model, Craig and I have talked about the jar of success. I've got right up there on the top shelf, a Tomb of the Unknown that keeps things in there that people can leave here. Strategies and things like that make a big difference in how you feel and what you're aware of. So it's a little unplanned emotional freedom tool. So Judith Orloff, I thought was cool. I came across what her words were to describe this, John. So emotional freedom is a roadmap for those who are stressed out, discouraged, or overwhelmed, as well as for those who are in good emotional place but want to feel even better. To turn away from negativity, react constructively, and seize command of any situation. Complete emotional freedom is in your grasp. I thought that was a pretty good encapsulation.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So, Frozen, let it go.
Let
Let it go.
Oh, we'll
Yeah.
definitely talk about letting stuff go. in a
You
little
know,
bit.
you watched Frozen?
Oh, I didn't catch the reference. The movie Frozen. Got you.
Yeah.
Impressive.
I'm so proud of you, John.
Thank you.
Why he can't watch cartoons because his
I
kids are 40 years old?
No, that's not why. I just don't.
I have a kid that's 40 years old.
I know.
It's,
I know. I was like serious. Chat GPT, the amazing place of Chat GPT. Just curious what they would have said. Emotional freedom is a state of being in which individuals have a healthy and balanced relationship with their emotions. Relationship with their emotions. That's cool. I thought that was a pretty good phrase. It involves the ability to recognize, understand, and manage one's emotions effectively without being overwhelmed or controlled by them. Here for Chat freaking GPT, huh?
I think that,
Yeah.
that's a wonderful definition. I love relationship
Right.
because emotions, that's saying that you can have a whole variety of emotions and
Some of them are going to be hard.
difficult.
And can't that still embody being free from being overwhelmed or controlled by them? Just think about that. People are terrified to come to therapy. They really are, I find. Because then I'm going to have to face my emotions, deal with myself, experience what I'm experiencing. And oh my God, as my friend likes to say, that's like taking my finger and repeatedly jabbing myself in the eyeball. Like, why would I do that? It's incredibly intimidating unless you've developed that ability, right? Like, that's a big deal, I feel like, John. Like, having that ability to have a relationship in and out, whether it's positive emotions or those ones that hurt too.
So that's a concept, and I'm gonna put a little religious spin on it. But the word for peace is shalom in Hebrew, and peace isn't the absence of conflict. Peace is to be able to live with it, both good and bad, and have a sense that of wholeness.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if that might be emotional freedom. In a sense.
I think the parallels, we had the pastor here, talking, it was an awesome show with Pastor Ray. There's a lot of parallels between those teachings, the belief systems, and mental health because, that's emotional freedom. I mean, whatever your creed is, I think that often the result ultimately is guidance on arriving at this place, just like therapy. Being free from, not absent of,
Yeah.
free from the control and the overwhelm and the anxiety and the fear and the dismay and all of that we associate sometimes being emotional.
So it's radical self-acceptance too.
Love
Yeah.
the term. Go further.
Okay. Well, again, going to the term shalom is wholeness, and I think radical self-acceptance is a wholeness that you can look into yourself. And you were saying when it's like getting poked in the eye with therapy, well, it's to be able to stare and say, okay, well, maybe I am getting poked in the eye, but it's not that bad, and what I have imagined it to be
Right.
is that imagination is a lot worse than what reality is.
That's an interesting piece. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, John, people, I know this sounds crazy, but I think both of you will easily agree. A lot of times people don't know what they're feeling.
Heck no.
Right. They don't even know.
Sometimes I don't even know what I'm feeling.
I was just, you took my thunder. Don't put us on a pedestal. I mean, half the time I'm sitting here, if you ask me how you feel right now, I have to really sit there and think and be mindful and be like, I don't know. I was just experiencing the day. Sometimes it's shitty. Sometimes it's good. But you don't know. And what do we know about something that you don't really know about? You're fearful. You're locked in it when you don't even know it, that it's there. And so I love the idea of shalom and radical acceptance. It's in DBT therapy as well, right? You know, the concept, and that's on that was in my brainstorm kind of as well. You know, self acceptance. It's almost a requirement to be able to be emotionally free.
Yeah.
So why do we care?
Why do we care, Chris?
Why do we care, Victoria? Victoria, do you care about being emotionally free? It's a corny term, right? Who cares about that anyway?
I mean, I would say so because even in just looking at the word freedom, like you want to be free of things that hold you down. And so, you know, if you're not emotionally free, I don't have emotional freedom, I feel like it's just adds to the list of things that potentially hold you back.
The emotional
Possibly.
realm can be full of turmoil, distress, fear, pain. Like when you're not able to handle these things or believe and accept them, John, as you just highlighted for us from the religious perspective, man, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. And I do believe to a large extent people are terrified of the emotional realm, right?
Yes.
You have thought. Your face.
Well, I'm just saying, I think it goes back to people are afraid to own up to how they're really feeling.
right.
And they're scared that once they say it, because I have conversations about this all the time in therapy, once you say it, it makes it real.
Yes.
And
sir.
so if I don't admit that I'm scared, if I don't admit that I'm ashamed, if I don't admit that I'm embarrassed,
right.
then I'm not technically really feeling those things. But I feel like in order to get to that emotional freedom, like we said, you have to be able to
Gotta go through it.
admit that I'm feeling scared, embarrassed, ashamed, whatever the feeling may be.
Well, that's a big teaching moment. Can't do it almost without it, can you?
Yeah.
Went on Outward Bound many years ago, and
Oh, that's good stuff.
yeah, it is. It
I
really
don't
is.
know what that is.
And I did that before I went into the Navy, so we're talking back in the dark ages. But went to
And
the
what is Outward Bound?
Outward Bound is a quick and dirty. Basically, is it developed after the Second World War because a lot of people were dying at sea. They didn't know how to survive, and part of that was that they despaired and they gave up hope. Outward Bound then was so it started out with the British by I'm not sure who he was, but anyway the point is that it really challenges you physically, and they go. You can go to the Everglades or the Bahamas, or you can go to the Rocky Mountains, or you can go to the mountains of North Carolina. You learn rock climbing.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
There's a lot of programming in West Virginia.
Lot of programs in West Virginia, and basically,
Is it like a troubled teens thing?
it
Can
can
be.
be, or it
Certainly.
can be a troubled young adult like I was, and I wasn't troubled, but well, yeah, I was.
Some people
but
would say that would make it a cult.
no, it is not.
It's
It,
like a week-long thing.
it's a week long, and it can actually last up to 30 days.
It's kind of like a ropes course, outdoor learning experiential thing.
But I did that,
Okay.
and at the very end, and I learned how to rappel, and I learned how to carry a pack, and we packed it in, we packed it out, we carried our food, all 9 yards. We did whitewater canoeing, and that was scary, and I kept tipping over the canoe. And it was in the beginning of April, and it snowed that day.
Cold.
So it was very cold.
You
But-
got cold.
But at the end, we had one last thing, and that's the ropes course. And we're up 70 feet high, and we have to get on what is called the butt bucket. And you get into that, and you have to take a leap of faith, basically.
Yeah.
And you get in that, and you go down, and you ride it. And there were people that were afraid, even after that week of being challenged beyond any, you're up in the mountains, and you only get about 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night, and it's really cold, and it's icy.
See,
and
I love
rainy.
that stuff. Not the
Yeah.
cold stuff, but
Yeah.
I love all the other
Yeah.
stuff.
And And the only thing I could say was when I got on this thing and I was like scared of heights and all of that, I said, "Oh, S," just as loud as I could, and I went and I did something I didn't think I could do, and that was looking in. When I thought I couldn't do it anymore or anything like that, I could.
Yeah.
And once I faced that, I could. And I'm sorry. That's
and you
a
know
long
you
story.
can.
Yeah,
Now.
you can. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, John, because I think that those types of experiences are really powerful. Craig talks about my buddy. He loves to take like going on a 4X or, Neil, I think our producer here he's into like, rucksacking and these very difficult physical challenges that when you like literally feel like you can't do them, and then you can do like 4 times what you thought you ever could do. Like that's a physical fact. Like if you can run 10 miles, that means you can run 40. That's crazy, right? But that's the truism.
I mean,
of
that's
our
and that
bodies.
is true.
It's true.
Yeah.
And then when you're faced with the stress and the turmoil, think about it. We may be working on an issue in therapy of depression, and you get into breaking down to Victoria, your point of true honesty and being genuine about that and getting through that. We have just helped that person deal with their marriage. We have helped that person dealing with their parenting distress, their loss of their grandmother, as well as any other thing that has emotional challenge, because that's what we're trying to get to. You can handle your emotions. You don't need to be overwhelmed with them. This is a world that you can kind of go in. You can ride the butt bucket 70 feet up in the air.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Well, and that's when AIDS was starting. HIV was and AIDS was really starting to be found out and studied, and there was a lot of fear. And one of the people that was a fellow on she was actually a nurse, an ICU nurse in New York, which was the dead center of where HIV was really developing. Didn't know a lot about it or anything like that, and she was burning out, and she went there to find herself again and to renew.
Wow. Right. Yeah.
So,
oh, that's an interesting concept I didn't plan or think about. That's why these conversations are cool. Once you attain emotional freedom,
Do you keep it?
Maybe not, right?
I would say, and correct me if you disagree, that it might be in the sense, you could look at it in the sense of like an alcoholic, is that once you become sober, you have to like
practice it.
you still have to
You have to
actively
maintain.
yeah, you have to actively maintain it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a one and done deal. It is something that you get into, you take, you step back, you become fearful again, you move forward again, you make great progress.
Like losing weight.
It's well, there you go.
Yeah, like once you lose
Absolutely.
weight, you don't get to eat all the cheeseburgers that you want to and then not continue to work out or whatever you were doing as exercise.
Right.
You have to continue to keep up your physical activity so that you can eat all the cheeseburgers that you want to.
Now, I will say this.
whatnot.
When
And
you move through, like, John, you're talking about a life-changing, outward-bound experience. There is, in levels of emotional freedom, I would submit to you, if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
You raise your basement, right? You
Your baseline, yeah,
your
it's high.
baseline is higher in the level of emotional freedom that you have. Simply because when you know you did something, you know you always did. It never goes away. So
Well, okay,
so there is
yeah.
that.
Like I've been lifting, right? Working out.
yeah.
I deadlifted 105 pounds yesterday.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Love that.
But so that's
Good for
now.
you.
So now if I lift just the 45-pound bar, it's like super easy for me now.
Right.
You know? And so but as I gain weight with my squats and with my deadlifts and all that stuff, then my baseline like I can do more. So
Yeah.
then I just build on top of that.
You're building.
So that's kind of what you're saying.
Well, a little bit different. I'm saying that actually with weight lifting exercise and weight, you can always go lower than you were before. So it's a little bit missing. I'm
Okay,
actually
gotcha.
I'm actually saying like you can always lift, 70 pounds.
Right.
when you go to a certain point, but that's not so.
Okay.
In actual
Okay. Sorry, I
weightlifting.
misunderstood.
Does that make sense? Well, we're pretty close. though.
Yeah.
Does that make
Okay.
sense? To
Yeah.
what I'm
No.
suggesting, and I think it's true. I think that's. Listen, the realities of this are this affects so much. The relationships that you have in real life become enhanced. You realize that your levels of stress are reduced. You gain a level of control over your fight and flight systems biologically, your fear factor. You make better decisions. You increase the ability to communicate with others. I mean, how am I doing so far, Victoria? Is this some of why we care?
Yeah.
It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Well, I mean, we don't want to be weighed down by the things that we don't understand or the things that we don't get.
Right.
So when you don't understand something, what do? You learn more about it.
Increased happiness, like generally, for real, when you're emotionally free. Better conflict resolution. You can deal with these problems, John, like you were saying. Doesn't mean everything's always hunky-dory and no conflict.
You're in
but
the
you can-
okay zone.
But you can deal with it. You're in the okay zone.
Have
What's
you
the
ever-
okay zone?
Okay. Well, have you ever heard of the CRAM, the Community Resiliency Model? Casey can teach it.
I do not.
Well, they teach this. Long story short, they teach this resiliency scale where you have.
It sounds like you're teaching us now.
Where
So
you-
they is you, girl.
So you have a high zone, an okay zone, and a low zone. High zone tends to be associated with anger. Low zone tends to be associated with sadness, depression.
Okay.
But your okay zone is where your resiliency is, where something can happen to you and you can continue throughout your day without it affecting your day. But occasionally things happen to us that bump us out of our okay zone into either the high zone or the low zone.
Right.
And we get stuck there
Okay.
because it's too much for us to handle. And so then we have to utilize coping skills, find ways to calm ourselves down, things like that.
Right.
But when you're in your okay zone, you can kind of go up and down within the okay zone when things happen to you and it doesn't affect your day. You're able to continue
all of
on
these things that I'm
throughout your
mentioning,
day.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
make it's a big deal.
I think people that are, let's say, there's a lot of chronic illness in a family, for example. Why do some families sunder? Why do they rip apart during that time? Or there's an abandonment of because somebody's sick and has been sick for a long, long time. COVID.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's the resiliency that I think what you were talking about, Victoria, is that you learn strategies on how to not go into where you get depressed and you surrender completely to the depression, or you
Get stuck.
or you get stuck in the anger. And so instead you are able to reconnoiter and kind of figure out where you are, and the next time that this happens you're gonna have a little better preparation, or if there's a
Delivery, a little bit better conflict resolution.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you must have seen the next one on my brainstorm was seriously better physical health. I mean, when you're in this comfort zone, this okay zone, when you're in that space that you're describing, John, I mean, literally your physical health improves.
Well, it's the whole cycle of when you eat better, you feel better, you work out more, which makes you eat better, which makes you feel better, which makes you work out more.
Catch the
which
fire,
makes you-
baby.
Yeah, and then once you just got to find a way to get in the cycle. But once you get in it,
Right.
I mean, I don't
Keep going.
always enjoy going to the gym. Sometimes I dread it and I cuss a lot.
I've seen the look on your face again.
As I say, Chris
Time or
goes to the
two.
same gym as me. He sees me sometimes, and I'm just like,
Nah.
F this.
But you know, I'm starting to enjoy it even more too.
But when I go home, I'm thankful that I went. And then,
Always.
although I more work out so that I can eat McDonald's, but you know,
I was
it does
thinking,
help me feel better about myself.
one of the things that when I go to the gym, and I've been going to the gym regularly since
I know you're my hero.
Yeah. Well, you
In that
too
way.
can be, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I'll get somebody on let's say the Stairmaster machine or something like that, and they tend to be somewhat heavier. Sometimes they get on the machine and they'll put it up to like 10
Oh,
Oh,
God.
dear
or something like
gosh.
that.
No.
And
On the
they'll do it
Stairmaster?
on the Stairmaster, and you say, no, you got to start at a much lower level,
Like one.
like a 1 or a 2, and you
Oh,
start
yeah.
to do that. And I think that's part of resiliency, is that you find, like you said, the base, and then you build up, and you raise that base higher and higher.
And you're making a metaphor right now, which is
Yeah.
excellent, to where what I hear you teaching us and talking about is like, wow, when you're dealing with emotional freedom, that might feel overwhelming. Let's just deal with a little bit of emotion.
Exactly. Literally, and one step at a time on the Stairmaster, one step at a time, an emotional freedom.
Now I'm gonna say 2 words, and I hope you're as disgusted with these 2 words as I get frustrated with these 2 corny words, but you'll know them when I say them. Are you as frustrated with these 2 words as I am? Baby steps, John. Baby
Yes.
steps.
Yes.
that drives me
That's right.
nuts, though.
Yeah, that's a real 80s.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
What about Bob?
Oh,
Was it-
absolutely! I love
Yeah,
that movie. That was
with Richard
terrifying to me as
Dreyfuss
a
and-
therapist at the time. Yes.
Yeah. He crossed so many boundaries.
Oh, my
the
God.
Love that
psychiatry.
movie.
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
awesome movie.
Yeah.
It's creepy though. From
Yeah.
a therapist perspective,
Yeah.
this seriously creeps me out a little bit. I haven't
Yeah.
watched that movie for a long time.
You don't want to get stalked.
You're
Yeah.
right. Really, all around life is better. You know, from the many storms that you will face in this life, there isn't any naivete that I want anyone to hang on to. Storms definitely come and go. You will be in some real raucous storms, but you can still be emotionally free in those times. I have an all-time quote that I love from Winston Churchill, and it has been really near and dear to my heart for a little while now, and that is simply like, when you're going through hell, you just keep going,
Never give up.
right? That's another one of his.
Yeah.
You know, he has some indelible phrases because they were going through some seriously difficult times in World War II there when Winston was oh boy, there's some good movies about his time. Look him up. I would say Winston Churchill was emotionally free, at least in the way that he led, because that was a terrifying time. So if you're going through hell, keep going. There's a lot of barriers here that we have
I would
with
say
people.
so.
I think we need to understand the barriers that
Life.
people experience so that we can identify those and attack those barriers. What did you say?
I said life.
Life is a barrier.
Life is a bear.
Oh,
No, life is a highway.
life is a highway.
All day long.
I joined you in singing, Gay. I did it.
Y'all don't want me
did
to
it.
join you in singing.
See, you raised the level.
I did.
You
I'm
raised-
emotionally free because I don't like to
Emotionally
sing.
free.
Oh.
What are the things that you think really hold people back in therapy when
The big T.
What's that?
Trauma.
Trauma. Yeah.
Specifically,
Trauma, drama.
unresolved trauma.
Go further with that because I think that's
Well, I mean, if you have resolved trauma, then that means you've been able to deal with it and move past your trauma. But if it's unresolved, it's just kind of festering. It's just kind of like sitting there waiting to explode. And so it's just, it goes back to the losing weight or getting healthy. I can't eat 5 cheeseburgers a day and not work out and then expect to wake up 20 pounds lighter the next day. Like,
Yeah.
that's just not going to happen. That's just physically impossible.
let's come back to that for a minute because I totally agree with you. But let's just think out loud for a moment, like sitting in a therapy session with people. What are some of the things that really knock people back? I had a little brainstorm that I prepared, but because I just in initial sessions or early on in a therapy relationship, like
Would you say honesty would be one? Or lack of honesty?
go there, yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, if you're a client, as a client, if you're not upfront and honest about your experiences, your emotions, your feelings, like your past traumas, your all that stuff, then me as a therapist, I can't adequately help you.
Or even against what we're able to do or not able to do. I'm listening
But I mean,
to
you
you,
have to be
Victoria.
honest with yourself.
Well, I'm listening to you,
Kind of,
and I think you're dead on. And what you're making me think about is though the times that people have said, "Listen, I haven't told anybody this."
Yeah.
Right?
I
Yeah.
love when they say that.
Right? Listen
Like,
to
"Whoa, tell
listen
me."
to her. Oh, jeez. But that is such an honor. That is such a precious moment. That is a very precious moment.
Another humbling
It-
experience that they trust you enough
Hugely humble.
to say, "Hey, I'm about to tell you something that I've literally never told anybody in my
Anyone.
life."
How much of a barrier to emotional freedom prior to that moment has that been? That's my point. Right? It's tremendously suffocating when you've gone through something or you experienced something, and not only do you not allow yourself to think about it, but you haven't told anyone. That's and it goes along with trauma.
Well, I mean, because that's a lot. That's a
Huge.
burden to carry. If
burden.
say I've been married for 40 years and I come to therapy and I say, "This is something that not even my husband knows."
I have that happen often.
And you're like, I mean, that is a lot to keep a quote unquote secret like
Right.
that is so a heavy burden.
The skeletons in
depending
the
on-
closet.
Well, and depending on the severity and level of what they've been holding on to without telling anyone,
And acting out on, by the way.
or acting out on as well. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's a big deal. What else comes, John, to your mind in initial sessions
yeah, I've talked
when
a lot.
people
What
are?
about you, John?
Yeah,
No, I was just listening.
No,
That's just-
I want to listen to you.
Well, I think I also have clients that are so anxious that they keep talking, but they don't stop. There's always something where therapists will talk too much, but there's also clients who talk too much, and they talk so much because they're afraid that they will listen to what they're feeling or actually experience that, and the avoidance, and they're avoiding their deep emotions and their feelings,
right.
and so they have to interject. I have one client, and I love this person tremendously as a client, but it's always you can't say stop. We need to talk about this. You've centered on this. How do we go deeper? And then
They're just ready to move on.
They
Let's
just
talk
go
about
on
the guy at work.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
do you think it also might be, which you might have already said this, is because they're afraid of what, if they stop talking, what you might have to say to what they've said?
That's a possibility. But,
Well, yeah, I think that goes into the avoidance, right?
Avoidance,
It
Okay,
seems
yeah,
like
well,
that's that for various reasons. I'm going to move on because I don't want to, again, be controlled, be overwhelmed.
they might think that, well, he might not like me if I really got into this.
Now that's a different thing.
Yeah,
I was just a second before you said that, I was thinking, well, wait a minute, what about judgment?
yeah.
Being judged or persecuted in some way for something that you're feeling or experiencing.
I have to remind my clients quite frequently that there is no such thing as TMI
Right.
in my office.
Right.
You can talk literally about anything under the sun, and I will 99% of the time keep my composure.
Yeah. How
I mean,
liberating is it
like-
to feel the experience, which is what's so powerful about emotion. Like, I don't know that therapists, we really understand how powerful the reality of it is when someone really gets close to the idea that I can say anything that's on my mind without retribution.
Now that's important for the therapist to be genuine, authentic, and transparent.
Right.
And so, in other words, that person, that you're just as transparent as you could be to allow and give permission to the client to be as open.
Yeah,
Right.
and sometimes you can see it in the clients before they say something. They'll say things like, "Well, I know you probably don't want to hear this, or this is probably too much information, or this is probably." I mean, I don't know about y'all. I mean, I talk about bowel movements. I talk about sex life.
yeah.
I talk about.
I always
like-
catch that, Victoria, and I stop right there
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, are
like
you
almost.
talking
I hope
your bowel movement.
No, I don't think they want to hear that. But I mean, because
pretty loose today.
but that's ew.
It was a joke.
That's a.
Did I go too far?
I think so.
Did I go too far?
Okay, you're getting stuck on that.
I think that some people don't realize that, like, it's my job, or I consider it my job to be that safe space for
Right.
you, to where I can, if I'm the only person in your life that you feel that way with, then I will be that person. If you,
Part of what the offer,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
service is.
like, and I
Or needs to be.
hate, and I use that very strongly because
I hear it.
Like, I strongly dislike and hate when I get people that come to me and they are telling me about their experiences with prior therapists in which they felt judged,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's why they left, or they felt their therapist made some snide comment about something that they did, whether it's partaking in a certain drug or their extracurricular activities or their choice of a job, and
Or
then
gender.
or gender or
Yeah.
anything. And then I feel like I have to do extra to make sure that they feel safe and that they can talk about.
Yeah, but your
whatever it is.
personality is so geared with that, Victoria.
Talk
I'm
to
sure
me.
that people
Tell me all your things.
That's
all
part
your
of what makes you
secrets.
good at what you do.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean that as a compliment, really, and it's such an important part of what we do. What was my brainstorm? I think we're doing pretty good and getting it, but we got to move on. Unresolved trauma. Oh yeah, you hit the first one on my brainstorm, Victoria. Lack of emotional learning. Oh yeah, that's probably worth a pretty good mention.
What is fun?
Honestly, when you haven't learned how to manage emotion, when you haven't been taught how to do this, when you don't have a model, you're screwed.
Emotional intelligence.
You got to be taught.
You got to be taught. It's taught rather than caught.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, real quick. We got to move on, but it's a cool little story. I remember, I'll try to be brief with this. Like, my little kid was playing outside all day. Aaron was outside, and
Yeah.
he come in. He was just grumpy and whiny and just crabby and just losing his mind. And of course, I knew what was going on, but he didn't. I'm like, "Well, come on, buddy, we're gonna have some spaghetti." He's like, "I don't want spaghetti." I'm like, "Well, that was his favorite food." I'm like, "No, just come on, sit down here." And he's just all grumpy. And he pulls his chair up. He throws his spoon down. I'm like, "Hey, buddy, what do you notice that you're feeling like?" He's like, "I don't know, I'm fine, ain't nothing." I'm like, "Okay, well, do you notice anything in your tummy and whatever?" And he's like, No. Like, is your stomach grumbling? Or do you think you're maybe hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Well, you have some spaghetti, and he did. And I said, well, how do you feel now? And it's like, and I taught him that he was, hungry.
Put
and
words.
I put words on the fact that
To
he was
what he was
angry
feeling.
and that he could take care of that problem by eating. Now, that sounds simple. Granted, he was 4 or 5 years old at the time, but he didn't know that, John.
It's a wonderful lesson.
He didn't know.
Yeah.
Right?
But
And
there's a lot of people that grow up that don't know how to do that.
they're not taught.
They're not taught.
It really is, or even worse. There's heavy criticism or shame-based feelings, or substance abuse families with neglect. I mean, there's just you're at such a disadvantage, and you are not emotionally free, and it's tough. So,
Taylor Nolan from the Bachelor franchise.
oh boy,
She's a therapist.
Okay.
But she talks. I follow her on all the things.
Oh,
but she talks. She's very famous from her when she was on The Bachelor about how she always talked about emotional intelligence.
okay.
But even as a therapist, that's something that she really
Values.
talks about. Like is like the importance of it.
It's crucial.
Yeah.
It's crucial, and
Was she a contestant or just a...
Yeah, she was I mean, she was on The Bachelor, so she wasn't the
she was
Bachelor.
she was one of the ladies trying to
she
get
was
the
one of the
guy.
ladies.
Oh, okay.
No
It was
judge-
like years ago, but I mean, she's really good at her job too. So she's based out of like Seattle, I think.
Clinical diagnosis is an honorable mention. Honestly, when somebody has a biological reality going on, that will act as a barrier. Then we need to attack that and deal with that. Negative thought patterns. And I'll just say fears, like all sorts of fears are very, very powerful.
I was thinking about this a little bit as you were talking earlier, but this kind of goes in this area too, is that sometimes when working with somebody that is diagnosed with borderline personality disorder,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a sense of you.
We were talking about that earlier today. That's why she's giggling.
You're good.
Yeah.
Keep talking, John.
that sense of there's no there sometimes, or
Right.
at least that person perceives himself or herself as not having. They have to feel that emptiness up.
Poor
And
sense of self.
A sense of self, and so there's no emotional freedom at all because
Right.
they feel that they're a ghost,
Right.
a vapor. And
One of the most painful things that you can experience is the perception or the experience of being invisible.
It's the worst.
Oh man, it
It's the worst. I mean, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with that. That is an awful
yeah. I learned that at a
feeling.
conference years ago, and we were all stumped when this lady asked the question, "What's the most painful thing you can experience?" And you're right, John, with that particular, which is a biological reality. I actually suspect hormones in that. That's a whole rabbit hole.
and that's
there,
why
huh?
you might see it more in
Right.
in,
In females?
Females,
You can say it, John.
yes,
Not
not
maybe not.
just.
I think dudes very much as well.
Well,
for
dudes
sure.
could be that, but but then the obverse of that would be for dudes what? Narcissism, more so.
Well, there's a good
This
show
is
topic.
the
The
dark-
Yeah, should we-
narcissism
the
versus
dark-
borderline personality
the-
disorder.
the
And I
dark
think it
cluster.
sucks that we put men in narcissistic categories and women in borderline. I don't know that that's really true and
Well-
accurate.
I
yeah.
could probably name 5 women narcissists.
No,
I know, off the
I
top of my
agree.
head.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's no.
Well, and let me be clear
Okay,
for our
so let's-
audience. I
let's-
wasn't saying you, but I think generally we do fall into that trap.
Let's
And
put that to the side.
I'm just
We'll-
going to
we'll
be
have
very
a-
angry with you now, Chris, because you have put me in my place.
I am so sorry, John.
It's
I didn't
okay.
mean to upset you. Victoria, help
So-
us.
Yes.
Let's move on then.
I
What's
don't.
next?
No, I think that's room for discussion. But
Right.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, we should totally have an episode on that.
Yeah, because that's a whole thing. All right, let's just some basics. I mean, let's not spend much time on this because I think there are other powerful things to understand as a part of emotional freedom. But you're basically dealing with emotions. You're learning how to deal with emotions. My quick brainstorm was, having emotional awareness and management. You hear mindfulness all the time. Self-care, I call it the cornerstone of mental health.
Yeah.
Coping skills with stress. Victoria, I think you mentioned that. Healthy boundary setting,
Oh,
super
Lord.
important.
Boundaries.
Positive life supports, family, friends, religious culture around you.
in serenity prayer.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Do you know how many times I quote that in sessions?
No.
Like,
I give
I'm
that out all the
honestly-
time.
Oh,
I'm
the-
honestly surprised that it's not written on your walls.
probably
somewhere.
should be. Yeah, you're
In some nice calligraphy or
You're right.
something.
you're
My
absolutely right.
first pastoral counseling class, 40-some years ago, we had that.
Okay, yeah.
The serenity prayer, Reinhold Niebuhr.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
It's a powerful, powerful reality, which I think emotional freedom is written all over that.
and to know the difference.
You gotta have.
I have,
That's the key
yeah.
part of the wisdom. Like dude,
That's
it's-
emotional freedom there.
That's the emotional freedom to
Yeah.
know which one is which. How many times are we trying to control things we can't control? And how many
Oh.
times are we failing to do something that we can do?
When you're doing couples counseling, both of you guys, you see that there's the control and they're going back and
Oh,
forth
boy,
and we
yeah.
talk about engulfment and all that, but
Right.
it's and distancing, but there's that need for control and somebody has to be on top.
It's a powerful
Yeah.
struggle
Yeah.
that people get into, for sure. So, real quick, anything else that's glaring in your minds that we would add? I mean, it's basically managing emotion, and we can make
Yeah.
a long
I mean, I
list.
just have another quote, but
Okay, hit it.
it's my favorite. Okay, so I'm like Casey. I love Hamilton.
Okay.
And in there, Aaron Burr sings a song where he quotes, I'm the one thing in life I can control. I'm inimitable. I'm an original. I'm not falling behind or running late. I'm not standing still. I'm lying in wait.
Nice.
And I love that. I feel like that kind of embodies emotional
I
freedom.
can see
too.
emotional freedom being all around swimming in that for sure. Say it one more time.
Uh, I am the one thing in life I can control. I am inimitable. I am an original. I'm not falling behind or running late. I'm not standing still. I am lying in wait.
That is awesome.
Aaron Burr.
There's these
From
powerful
Hamilton.
these powerful guidances that we can get, and if you allow any one of those to be a focus point, to meditate on it, to allow it to sort of just swim around in your heart and in your spirit, you can do a lot of amazing and powerful things if you live that out.
Yeah.
Just like if you live the Serenity Prayer out. It's a great, I was going to say tool. It's a wonderful orientation to live under.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a segment here with just concepts that go into this quest. I said it in the original questions, right? What is emotional freedom? I think you get that. We just talked about the Serenity Prayer, which I happen to believe to be one of the most important tools in emotional freedom. Let's get to the idea of John, can you have emotional freedom if you don't have ability to let go of stuff?
Absolutely not. I
Right.
think you have to have the ability to forgive. I would say that 90% of the issues that I deal with my clients is the past and not being able to let go of it, not being able to forgive.
90%. That's a
yeah.
big number.
Well, that's a John Pope right out of the air
Well,
number.
but
I mean,
that's certainly
I mean,
not
it's
20%.
yeah, it's not 20%. It's most of it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not saying that you have to forget, but if you can forgive.
Yeah, but as long as you don't forgive, and that is forgive the situation, forgive what's happened, is that you're still stuck in the past, and you're stuck in the past memories. And we know that I'm going to be a little frank here, some politicians that just don't let go of the past.
Oh, God.
And let go. And they want revenge and all of that, and you let it go.
Honestly, most politicians live that way,
yeah.
John. Honestly.
Yeah. And
live that way.
And I think that can be detrimental for living spirit for the nation, you know.
On a big level.
Well,
Yeah.
especially if you're a
Certainly
person
for
in
the
power,
nation.
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a great book that was written, and I think it might have been Dumas. I might have been wrong on that, but it was The Count of Monte Cristo. You familiar with that?
I know the title, but
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
But he basically, the guy is wrongfully imprisoned. His wife is stolen, and all that. And he spends 20 years plotting revenge. And even when he is free,
Oh, wow.
when he is free, he finally gets out. He's free and he's rich and all of that. He goes and he tries to destroy the person that took his love away from him, and
Wow.
it nearly destroys him.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, so it's very powerful.
I did not know that's the storyline for The Count.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So
There's a
sorry,
book on
Denise.
my bookshelf. It's a silly book. You wouldn't think it to be on my shelf, but I purposely keep it there more as a reminder for myself because I've pulled it out many times and now I just mostly say it. But there's the Children's Dictionary sits on my shelf.
I've seen that.
I
Yeah.
look at it all the time.
It's for one reason, the definition of forgiveness that they have in there. I just thought it was perfect many years ago when I saw it. So I always kept that book, and I like to open it up and give it to the person so that they can read letting
Can we
go
get it out and
of
read it?
anger against. That's the definition of forgiveness. Letting go of anger against.
Letting go of anger.
That's
I would say most of my clients
have some sort of anger they're holding on to.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
why they're in therapy, and I think they're very brave to come and look at this, that they have to perhaps change.
Right. Contend with. Allow to be
Contend with.
present.
Yeah.
You know how many we'd have diagnosable conditions that are probably because of suppressed anger? Yeah, no,
Too bad
90%.
suppressed anger is an actual diagnosis.
Huh?
It's too bad suppressed anger is not actually
Oh, I was going
a
to say.
diagnosable code.
I literally thought you said that it was, I was like, what did I miss?
Yeah.
I had a
That-
client that said, "I'm not angry."
Whoa.
Uh,
Neil, the
Do you have
producer.
to, Neil? Do you have to?
Neil, the producer's like, man, the microphones just blew up.
I'm sorry, Neil.
Feel
So-
bad for anyone who has on headphones right now.
So no, you're fine, man. I love that. John just comes at it. He brings it hard when he brings it. Letting go is huge. Resiliency is another one that I had that I thought we really needed to have as a part of
Yeah.
this conversation.
That's okay, right?
What?
Resiliency
Yeah,
is where
the-
the
in
okay.
The
okay
okay
zone.
zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You spent a lot of time on that. I know you love that.
Well, and
concept.
just because all my years working with kids, like kids are just so resilient, probably more resilient than they actually need to be.
They so
But,
are.
I mean, even in small things, I watch my 17-month-old. He falls, gets right back up, and keeps running.
kids
And
have not
I'm just
learned.
like, dude, you just ran into a wall,
they
and he's
haven't
like,
bought the
okay.
Go, John. That's what
They
I'm trying
they
to
haven't
say.
about. Oops, there goes another rubber tree plant. That was about resiliency because he had high hopes. He had. So
Right.
get up and keep a resiliency, and they life kind of tries to knock you down and put you down, and you can believe the lie and not get up again. And the challenge would be to be resilient. To
Kids
come
are
back.
just not afraid to be emotional. They haven't developed that cognitive frontal cortex, abstract thinking, reasoning
There
ability
you go.
quite so strong yet, and they just experience what's going on, and they're with the moment. We lose that a little bit with our development.
So, in other words, the executive functioning might govern it too much. where
Right.
Yeah.
Trust your gut. Let your feelings be present. You know, I oftentimes tell people, right, like people are afraid of children going to funerals oftentimes.
Yep.
That's immediately where my brain went, Victoria, when you
Yep.
brought that up. Like, they're the ones that are stable in the funerals. They
Yeah.
they deal with it really well.
Yeah.
They're sad that grandma's sleeping and they miss
Yeah.
them and they're a puddle and then they want to go play kickball and then they're hungry and they're irritated, so you get something to eat and then they go and say prayers with grandma and get
Yeah, I didn't get to go to I was 4 years old when my papa died, my mom's dad, and I didn't get to go to the funeral.
Yeah.
And that is actively something that I think about
oh
a lot.
Right.
I probably need my own therapy for
didn't
that.
have
But you know.
The opportunity for that because people were afraid for
Well,
you.
yeah, I mean that was also I was 4 in 1997, and
Right.
so I mean that was a long time ago.
I know,
I'm
John.
sorry.
I'm moving on. I'm moving on as well.
Remember, I just turned 30 last week or 2 weeks ago.
You're so young.
All right, listen. So we talked about resiliency. I don't want to short that one, but you
Yeah.
hit it. You hit it pretty
No,
good.
I mean,
Let's spend a little bit of time on developing emotional freedom through a support system. Right? You I don't know. It seems like we're readily agreeing that I don't know that you can be emotionally free if you don't have the ability to let go. It's
Right.
probably top of the list. I also maybe equally don't know if you can truly be emotionally free when you're alone.
there's a reason that when someone goes in for transplant surgery, they have to prove that they have a support system, people that will help look after them and do things like that because you can't do it alone.
We know the organ won't be used. People struggle.
Yeah. If yeah.
There's
Words
there's
are
a
hard.
No, this is absolutely right. When somebody has had, for example, a liver transplant, or getting ready to have a liver transplant,
Right.
they have to be evaluated. They have to be assessed. They have to be able to let's say if they have hepatitis, which cause liver, death of the liver or of the organ, or alcoholism.
Right.
Yeah, they have to demonstrate that they have that support system that will help them through this,
Sustain.
and that they won't.
It's funny. I did not
sustain
know that
and
that was
maintain.
part of the assessment for organ transplants, but it makes perfect sense. I mean,
Well, and not just even that. I mean, any major
Procedure.
any major surgery, the doctors are probably going to ask you, like, do you have people that can help take care of you when you get home?
And not only the physical, but the mental. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that we like to romanticize. I'm tough. Emotions don't bother me. I'm unflappable, so I don't need to tell anybody, and nobody needs to know what I'm feeling. I don't think that you can sustain emotional freedom
I
that
would
way.
say, yeah. I would say if like in the dating pool, a red flag would be someone who's actively defiant against therapy, and a green flag would be someone who is actively and willingly admits that they're involved in therapy.
Well, I won't marry somebody that won't go to premarital counseling.
Yeah, you won't be
Really?
a pastor there.
As
the
a
guy-
pastor?
As a pastor, because the guy, and it's usually the guys, and I don't need that. I don't need that. And it turns out that the
Yeah.
guy really has very little. There's sometimes substance abuse going on, or misogyny, or something like that. So
Yeah.
you got to serve somebody, is what Bob Dylan said.
Bob
you know?
Dylan,
Yeah, Bob Dylan. So you got to serve somebody.
Yeah.
And so part of this is if a person doesn't have emotional freedom, they're not going to know that whether some things that they serve, let's say drugs or social media or a profligate lifestyle, so to speak. There's judgment on my part there a bit, but they're going to go down the wrong trail.
Well, I just feel like there's the reality of the other. So you have to serve somebody, but you also have to receive. It's relational.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that we are designed or have the ability to just keep our emotion inside and think that we're going to be able to be free from that.
Mm-hmm.
It has got to go somewhere to someone or something. Prayer is amazing for that. You use your prayer to Allah or whom your creator is. It goes. There has to be a movement. It's in you, and to be free, it has to go outside of you.
Well, that's
Oh,
why
I love that. I love that.
I love telling people to utilize time alone in their car to talk to themselves.
Absolutely.
You don't even have to be talking to anyone, but
What's called Gestalt.
yeah.
Remember the old Gestalt
Yeah.
stuff?
I mean, I remember when I was pregnant with my child, I was talking to him, but I would just talk. And it would be very therapeutic for me.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And I mean, technically, I guess I was talking to him in my stomach, but I don't know. It kind of, it helped reduce some of my anxiety.
It's a great point.
know?
I giggled inside myself because my next door neighbor, shout out to you, Kevin. He's like, man, I've had many, many arguments with my wife, and she's not been here, and it's better that way.
Right.
I like that.
Absolutely. It gets it out. It's got to go. It's just got to go somewhere.
I have a client that he had a transplant because he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a variety of that and his therapeutic moment is he has to go to a drum circle.
Oh, those are awesome.
Once a month. That is his.
You go to Asheville? Or does he go somewhere else?
No, he goes here.
Okay.
So, yeah, but you would expect that in Asheville.
Yeah, I would. Which is why I asked.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot to be checking YouTube with the comments and stuff. And we have a comment: "Forgive and forget, but it's hard to forget." It's
it
so
is.
true. There's a reality with that. And
Yeah,
and
screw
you know what?
that saying.
Go ahead.
Like I said earlier, screw that. You do not have to forget.
Right.
Well,
But you can forget. You can forgive and not forget, because I like to tell people, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I like to tell people that if you forget, your chances of it letting it happen again increase.
You can become naive.
And so then by forgiving but still remembering, you're able to at least protect yourself and create those boundaries to prevent a similar situation happening in the future.
You learn.
And if you say what the scripture says is, for example, in Christian scriptures, well, you're to forgive and forget. It doesn't say that. It says you are to forgive.
Period.
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 Mic drop.
Right.
Wow, yeah, Victoria is on this one, boy, and I'm glad you are, because that is a tough thing that people do get into. It's kind of like, well, I'm not going to give this up. I'm going to hang on to this pain that I'm causing with this anger because I don't want to be hurt again. I've been hurt many times over, and dadgummit, I'm not again, never again, and that's not what we want. That's not where we want to be.
Yeah.
You know, I agree with you, Victoria. I'm glad you've hit that hard.
It's mainly because I've talked a lot about it last week and this week with my clients. So it's really like fresh on my mind.
Isn't it funny that
I
it is
love
these things that we are talking about? This is really through a therapist's eyes, because this is what we talk about. This is what we do. It's real in our office.
And it's not we gain wisdom through our clients.
Oh, you know that.
Our
for sure.
clients
Dude, I've learned-
teach us.
jeez.
I learned so much
So
from them. They're so wonderful.
In my private life, people, I'm sure, I even qualify, and I'm like, I know I say this all the time, but, you know, I was talking to a client, I learned that da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Like,
I say that.
It's
I go home
constant.
to my husband sometimes and I'll be like, you'll never guess what I learned today.
Right. I mean, it's
from a client.
constant. It's constant. So, closing thoughts, comments. We need to bug out here, I think. Did we do a good job? Is there anything that we missed with really important concepts? Oh, well, I just looked at my reminder sheet. The last one that we did talk about is self-acceptance. That's
Yeah.
also a pretty strong requirement that we talked about before. Anything that we missed? Is the brainstorm good there? What really stabilizes the emotional freedom?
I think being vulnerable and knowing that it is achievable, it is doable. But in order,
And it's a process though, because you
Right.
have to practice it. It's like living and changing. You brought up
working out,
working out or eating or whatever, and that is that you have to change
Revisit.
and revisit and go and
Revisit.
do it and
Well, I
keep
mean,
growing.
if I lifted the same weight every single time I went to the gym, I'm not gonna make too significant of a. I might make a little bit of a progress, but I'm not really gonna make an impact. So I
Slow and
slowly
steady.
increase the weight every time.
Slowly increase your emotion management.
I
Slowly
don't just
get
wake
into
up one day
things.
and bench press
Baby
250
steps.
pounds.
Yeah, you knew where I was going. Slowly get into managing. Slowly
Yep.
get into, but just take steps. Just take steps. Listen, I appreciate you going along with this journey with us on emotional freedom, understanding it, and the catchy title there. Want some? I'm sure that you do, and I want to encourage you to really understand that it is, as Victoria just said, we are capable of doing that. We see that in our offices. And so that encouragement I hope you receive, and today grow a little bit more and then a little bit more tomorrow, and towards the goal of maintaining emotional freedom. Take care, be well, and we'll see you next week.